Hiya folks, it's Joe here from the Plugin Project, and today we're going to be looking at an app called LaunchPad. LaunchPad is an app that makes creating great beats and loops really easy. Let's have a look at how it's set up. When you open the app, there will probably be some cool preset pads that you can play with, but we're going to start from scratch. So, there's 48 pads here on the screen, and you can assign a different sample or loop to each one. So let's get some sounds into our project. To do this, we hit Edit Pad, just here, and then we can browse the collection. This can be ordered by category, which I like to think of as instruments. That makes the most sense to me. So here's the category of all the instruments. It can be arranged by sound packs, which I like to think of as genre, and then you can add some favorites, and there's also an option for audio import, so you can get your own samples into it, but that's only with the Pro version, so we won't talk about that today. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to pick the samples that you're going to be using. Listen to a load and see what you like and pop them in your project is how I do it. I personally like to start with drums because I find that the easiest way to make this kind of music. So let's have a look at the drums. So we've got a huge variety of drums, as you can see from this scrolling. What we can do is press the little play button next to the name of the sample, and that will give us a preview. So Air Dank, let's see what that sounds like. You might have noticed there that the sample didn't start at the beginning. That's because there's a constant metronome going. So even if you're just trying out a sample, it will play it in time with your project, which I think is pretty cool. So let's have a look. What should we listen to? Yeah, I like that. So as you can see, just underneath where it says Bingo 1, it tells you that it's drums, very useful, and that it's at 127 BPM and that the sample is 8 beats long. This is really useful, so you can try and line this stuff up, but there is a function inside of LaunchPad which allows you to just put everything under the same BPM, and that's just here, the little speedometer, I suppose, or metronome probably, which brings up the metronome. You've got a tap tempo there in the center, or you can just go up or down in numbers with the plus or minus signs. So to get this into the project, we click on the place that we want the beat to go, or the pad rather, and so I want this to be in the top left up here, so I click just there and then add Bingo 1. So there it is. There's a few controls at the bottom here. You can change the volume of the sample. I wouldn't recommend going to 20 dB, plus 20 dB if you want to keep your eardrums. And you can also pan it left and right, which sounds like this. You'll only be able to hear that if you've got headphones on or are listening through speakers which have 2 speakers, but it's a cool thing. You can give each instrument its own space in the mix, which I like a lot, but I want the drums to be right bang in the center. There's also a really cool function called pad mode, which allows you to pick 3 different types of pad mode. There's loop, so when you tap it, it'll just keep playing over and over again until you tap it and it stops. There's one shot, which means basically it will play for as long as you hold it down. So I took my finger off and the sample stopped straight away there. A really cool thing you can do with this is stuff like this. I'll just go back onto the pad mode. So you can really get creative with the samples and start chopping them up just from playing rhythmically with your fingers. I think it's really cool. Then there's retrigger, which basically will play the loop once, but if you press it before that loop is finished, it will add another one onto the end. So it will play it twice, and then if you do it during the second one, it will play it 3 times, and so on and so on. So here's me just playing it once. And it stops. but if I reactivate it, I can get it to play as many times as I want to. And stop. There we have it. Right, so there we are. I like to have my drums in loop mode. I find it the easiest way to work for me personally, so I'll just pop that back onto there. And then let's get some bass. So we're going to click the next pad just there, go back to our categories and have a look at some bass. That's pretty cool. Bass groove, that sounds good. Nice, I think that's the one I'm going to want. And as you can see, because this isn't just rhythmic anymore, there's harmony involved. It's a harmonic instrument, so there's a key to this sample. This one happens to be in C minor, so when I add it to the project, then it sounds just like that. And this is really useful. You can, if you want to, line everything up so it's all in the same key and only use samples that are in the same key. But if that's not quite your style, then you can click the tuning fork just up here, select one of these keys, and it will change the key of everything so it's all in the same key. So you don't have to worry whether it says A minor or B minor or whatever. It will all work nicely together. So let's hear that in action. So there you go. I've put my bass in the next slot. I like to work horizontally, so I've got one full track of sounds that work nicely together here, and then I can have another one here, and so on and so forth. There is a reason for that, and I'll go into it a little bit later. Don't worry about it for now. So now we've got the drums and bass in the track. I'm going to fast forward a little bit so you don't have to watch me listening to all of these to pick my favourites. It's just going to be the same process as we've had for the bass and the drums. So I'll see you when I've collected my samples. So now we're ready to play. I've put in two different rows of sounds here, which I think work nicely together. We've got two sets of drums in each, which is the green, two basses, which is the blue, two melodic or harmonic devices, which is the pink or purple, some vocal stuff, which is the light blue, and then some effects, which is the orange. I don't know if you can see, but in the top corner, once I've hit play there, just next in between the record and stop button, you can see a flashing light. The green light means beat 1 and the orange lights are beats 2, 3 and 4. So it's important to remember that the sample will only begin once that green light flashes. If you start one on beat 2, then nothing will happen until you've got back to beat 1. This is very useful for helping you play in time. It means you don't actually have to play in time really, which is great, but it can take a little bit of getting used to. But trial and error is the best way. Just have a mess around and you'll have some fun. So to get started, we just tap the sample you want to play first. All of mine are in loop mode apart from the effects, just because I find that easiest, so they'll keep going until I press them again to stop it. The best thing to do here is just play around and have some fun. It will really help you get to grips with the interface. Learning when to press the pad for the sample to come in at the right time was tricky, but with some practice you'll get there. So here's my line 1. Let's start with some drums. And some bass. Let's get in the chords and the guitar. Swap up the basses and back. Cool. All I did there was press the stop button in the top right hand corner and that stops the whole project, and to get it going again you just hit play and reactivate whatever you need to. A really cool trick with LaunchPad is that if you swipe across a whole row, it will start playing all of them together, and just as you'd expect, if you swipe across again, it will all stop. So let's see how that sounds. There we go. I think that's such a cool feature. The last thing I'll show you before I move on to showing you a piece, or having a go at playing a piece I should say, is the Wicked Effects system. If you just tap this at the bottom here, you get this really cool array of symbols, and each of these is a different effect. The first 5 repeat the last bit that was played. So the best way to show this, I think, is with drums. So I'll get some drums going. So if I press and hold the first button, it'll repeat the last 1 beat. The next one is half a beat. The next one is a quarter of a beat. Then we've got a quaver triplet and a crotchet triplet. And I just think that is such a wicked way to really add your own flavour to these samples. It's really satisfying to do, really responsive, and I could spend hours just playing with that, if I'm brutally honest. Next up, we've got a flanger. You press and hold the flanger for as long as you want it to be active. Let's get some bass and drums going for this. So you can hear that kind of ducking and rising, oscillating, because that's what it is, an oscillator being added, and that's your flanger. The next 2 are different types of tremolo, which is basically adding rhythmic gaps in your music. It's quite hard to explain, but have a listen. So here's a slow one and a fast one. The next thing that we can add is some filters. So we've got 4 filters along the bottom, these circular pictures here. I'll go through each of them. They're pretty self-explanatory. They just add a filter sweep to your piece. And the next one. And the next one. And the last one. There we go. And next up we've got 2 stoppers. The first one is really fast. It's like a needle being taken off a record player. And then you release your finger and the beat starts going again. The other stopper takes a much longer time to go down, and it will take the same amount of time to go back up once you take your finger off. So let's have a listen to that. Hear it filter sweep down. And then when I take my finger off, it'll filter sweep back up. The last couple of effects we've got are delays. A delay is when it takes a note and repeats it for an amount of time, but the repeat gets quieter and quieter. So it's a bit like until it fades away into nothing. That might not have been a very good example, but hopefully you get the gist. Anyway, here is the first delay effect, which is pretty harsh, and then the second one, which is a softer delay. Let's have a listen. No delay, and here it is. You can really hear it on the snare. And the other one. Cool. You can also change each individual volume level if you want to. Here you can do it live. You can do multiple at once, which is really cool. And if you take one down and want it to go back up to kind of the standard level, just double tap it and there it goes. There's also filters which do a very similar thing, but you can filter each instrument individually. So say we wanted our drum groove going and we just wanted to do a filter sweep on the bass, this is how we do it. Just the same, double tap it to bring it back to the middle. Right, so this has been a lot of talking, so here's me attempting to play a full track with these sounds. So there we have it. There's my first real try at playing a track with this. I think it's so much fun. I could do it for absolutely hours upon hours, and I think I actually might. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I can't recommend this app enough. It has loads of great features and it really lets you put your own creativity into some pre-existing samples, which I think is wicked. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it and enjoy your day.